Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Amir Hossein Rahbari. You can call me Amir. It's easier. And I'm a student as well. And today I'm going to talk about the role of social empathy in the delivery of social protection systems in rural areas. So today we're going to take a look at empathy, social empathy, and their definitions, and also social protection in rural areas and possible roles of social empathy in delivery of social protection. So empathy definition is broad, and there are two papers that I found that they reviewed all the definitions and tried to reach to a final word. The first one said that so it's ambiguous and with diverse measurements in different articles. And the second one with Koff and colleagues, they suggest a final word for defining empathy, an emotional response emerging in automatic and controlled way, and influenced by trait and state interaction. So, okay, what's interesting in this definition is that there is no behavioral component, and they argue that it's controversial to add it. And also, they mentioned this, that we can emerge empathy in a controlled way. I'm not going to go through the whole definition because of the time. And social empathy. Gerdes and Siegel in 2009, they suggest that as empathy is biased and we tend to show empathy to those that we know, to those that are the member of our in-group, and we tend to show empathy to those who have who share this group membership with us. They introduce social empathy, and there are three components for it in 2009, actually. The first component is affective response, the second cognitive response, and the second one is conscious decision-making. So conscious decision-making here is the behavioral component. They say that without action in response to the empathic induction process, we believe a person is not truly empathic. So that's a little bit extreme. And in 2011, they said that, Siegel said that there are three steps to reach social empathy. The first step is to feel empathy to its highest degree. And the second one is acquiring insight and knowledge about the disparity and inequality context. By that, she means historical and socioeconomic disparity and context. And the third element, again, is behavioral, social responsibility, which helps us to go beyond our circle of those who we know and expand our empathy to other group members. What's interesting is that in 2018, Siegel, in her book, suggested a new, actually, it's not new, but it's a continuum of the previous concept that she introduced before. She said that, okay, social empathy, we have interpersonal empathy, and if we expand it, we can reach social empathy. So by interpersonal empathy, she means that it has 5 elements. The first one is affective response, which emerged immediately. Affective mentalizing, when you imagine the situation and you get this response, affection response. And the third element is self-other awareness, that you are aware of that the resource of the source of these emotions inside you is from an external source. And the fourth element is perspective taking. What is it like to be in this situation in a very short term? And emotional regulation when you adjust your feelings, not to carry away with your emotions, and remain rational. So What are these two elements that she suggested for social empathy? There are two, and these two are contextual understanding and macro perspective taking. So if you have these two added to that interpersonal empathy, we have social empathy. So by contextual understanding, she means that she said that context entails the historical events that form the group and members' identity. Differing life situations, life experience history, and group history they belong. Considering the structural inequalities, challenges, and obstacles that these groups face. And by macro perspective taking, she means considering how it might be like as a member of different groups. So it's a perspective taking, but as macro perspective taking is how is it like to be a member of this group. Race, and by groups she means race, culture, and other groups. So poverty in rural areas. In rural areas, individuals mostly work in missing or malfunctioning markets with limited access to land, technology, financial tools, insurance, and markets offer, and the markets to offer their products. Also, globally, individuals under $1.9 a day poverty line work mostly in agriculture in rural areas, having more children and less educational achievements. And those who are multidimensionally poor are mostly children and young ones in the rural areas. And why? Because of basic deprivation in basic infrastructure access, like electricity, housing, sanitation, and water, and education. So what is social protection? Sorry to give you so many definitions, but at the end, we want to connect these. Social protection is policies and programs that protect people against poverty and risk to their livelihood and well-being. So against poverty and risk. And there are three classes: social insurance, social assistance, and labor market policies. And social protection in rural areas. What are the logic behind it? Firstly, the labor characteristic in rural areas is different because they face low and unstable income. It's not secure that this year they will yield the same as the last year agricultural benefits. And if they work for somebody, it's informal in most cases and insecure. So this leads to vulnerability to shocks when we have economic shocks, climate-related shocks, or like COVID. They are the most who are vulnerable to these shocks. And as a result, to just hinder these shocks, they think like, why should I spend my money for investing somewhere? To change my agricultural way. So their decision making is different. They save their monies. They tend to less invest in new ways of productivity. So social protection provides them secure income. Like at the end of the month, they know that they will receive, although it is a little, but they will receive something. Or if they have insured their crops, their agricultural industry, if they insure it, they know that at the end, if even the shocks is coming, they are supported. So this support of social protection can boost productivity and income in the long term because they tend to risk more, invest their money, or change their way of cultivating. So this is social protection delivery chain. In short, first they announce a program, and then people self-register themselves, and then the officer comes and their conditions are checked, if they are eligible or not, and then if they were eligible, they will receive this notification that you are eligible and you will receive the benefit. So There are some suggestions for social empathy role in delivery chain of social protection. Firstly, in outreach, which is the announcement of the program, if we look at the context, as you can remember, if you remember the two elements, context and macro perspective thinking of social empathy, if we consider the context, we know that people are, we consider those who are illiterate, have visual, auditory impairments, or do not have access to the media, the internet, and cell phones. So, and also we just see, if we see the history of the benefits that they have received in the past, do they trust these programs of government? How was the past experience that they had? So, but with macro perspective taking, we see how's it like to be a person living in a village and belong to different groups. Like, how's it like to hear about a program? Is it acceptable for me as a person in these groups that I'm belonging to receive some benefits from government? Is it, there are some concepts of honor, maybe, if you call it honor, and yeah. So what if we consider these two elements of social empathy? Maybe in the government we can use more inclusive communication means with the right-based approach, meaning that we consider social protection not as a handout but as a right of people, and we promote this idea that this is your right, insurance is your right, pension is your right, not a handout. And by inclusive communication means, I mean that for all people with different impairments, with different levels of education, the simple message, and we make sure that most people hear about it. And the next step is intake and registration. Let me see if I can make this laser. Yeah, I hope that you can see the laser. So the intake and registration, here the context is most people live in remote areas with poor access. Cost of transportation also is important, because in many of programs, people should go to the nearest office and register themselves, bring the documents, and say, okay, I'm living in a village and I need some support. So is it humiliating? If we take micro perspective taking, is it humiliating for members of this group to spend a day traveling to the nearest office to register? And also we should consider personal stigma and stigmatization. Personal stigma means that people consider their identity devalued if they receive benefits. And stigmatization is when a person perceives that others perceive their identity devaluated, like my group members. So the third step is assessment of needs by an officer. In most cases, the officer goes to the field and checks the crops, check the field of agricultural things, and maybe animals or whatever assets they have, and assess what are the needs. So the context here is different culture, norms, language, age, traditions, values. And by macro perspective taking, officers considers how it would feel to be monitored by an applicant of a benefit. And also we have a word for it, and it's claim stigma, feeling of being watched by administrative staffs. And considering these as social empathy can lead to empathetic interaction. Announcement of eligible applicants is the next step. In this step, by macro perspective taking, we consider those who are not eligible, and like they think still that they are eligible, and this is unfair that they are not considered as eligible. So here, a clear, decent instruction for grievance, appeals, and respectful reaction is needed. Okay, I'm going forward. This is a journey map and can be used for considering the emotions of the applicants. At the top side, you can see the changes of emotions during the application, and on the downside, you can see the steps that an applicant go through. And this example is about unemployment benefit. So you can see that the changes of emotions at the top side, that government can use this element, this tool to just use this perspective taking and social empathy for programs that they suggest. And just in conclusion, because of the time, I go through the limitation. I didn't go through the design of social protection and how social empathy can influence that. And also this was a very quick and brief review of literature. I hope you enjoyed it. And these are the references. And yeah, thank you so much.